The sun rose gently over Nadi, painting the horizon in hues of gold and rose. The palm trees swayed in the warm breeze, and the sound of the waves carried softly across the shore. The family villa overlooked the turquoise sea, and inside, preparations were underway for the Easter brunch. Joan adjusted the collar of his shirt as he glanced at the long wooden table set out on the veranda. Plates of fresh fruit, warm bread, roasted fish, and steaming taro were arranged with care. Easter in Fiji always carried with it a mixture of tradition and islandese, and today was no different. Yet there was an undercurrent that Joan could not quite name, a tension in the air that no one seemed to address. His sister Lisha arrived last, her smile bright, her dress flowing like the tide itself. She was the kind of woman who carried secrets behind her charm, and today her eyes gleamed with something unspoken. She kissed her brother's cheek and took her seat at the head of the table, her presence commanding attention without effort. As the family gathered, laughter echoed, glasses clinked, and children ran about chasing one another with colored eggs. For a while, it seemed like any other Easter. But Joan's mind was restless. He had been hiding something, and though he believed he had covered his tracks, a small part of him feared that someone might know. Then, as the laughter softened and the plates filled, Lisha leaned forward. Her voice was light, almost playful, yet her words cut through the morning like a blade.
So, Joan,
How was the Fiji wellness retreat I booked for you? The table fell silent. Forks hovered in midair. All eyes turned to Joan, who froze, his throat dry. His mind scrambled for an answer, but the truth pressed heavily on his chest. Lisha's gaze held his firmly, a smile lingering on her lips, as though she knew more than she let on. The Easter morning had just shifted. What began as a meal of joy had become the opening of something far deeper, something that would not be contained within the walls of this villa. Joan forced a smile, though his hands trembled slightly as he set down his fork. The question from Lisha hung in the air, daring him to respond. Around the table, his cousins and uncles glanced between the two siblings, sensing the sudden shift in mood. He cleared his throat. It was good, very relaxing. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed unease. Lisha tilted her head, her smile never fading. I am glad to hear that. I thought you might enjoy it, after all you seemed so tired these past months. No one else spoke. The clatter of cutlery slowly resumed, but the atmosphere had changed. Lisha's words carried something beneath the surface, and Joan knew she was not simply making conversation. She was probing, gently but deliberately. As the meal went on, Joan tried to steer the topic away, but Lisha's presence loomed over every word. He laughed too loudly, poured too much wine, and avoided her gaze. Deep inside, he wondered how much she truly knew. And if she knew, who else might know as well? Later that afternoon, the family dispersed into smaller groups. Some walked down to the beach, others napped beneath the shade of the palms. Joan slipped away to the far end of the garden, needing the sea breeze to clear his thoughts. He remembered the truth all too well. There had been no wellness retreat. The money meant for the trip had gone elsewhere, into places he could not admit to his family. He had counted on silence, on secrecy, but Lisha's question tore open a wound he had buried. As he gazed at the horizon, he felt the weight of his choices pressing down. If Lisha exposed him, everything could crumble. His reputation, his family's trust, even his own sense of worth. The island felt smaller, the waves louder, and his secrets heavier than ever before. That evening, the family gathered again for music and kava under the lantern light. Lisha sat close to Joan, her eyes glinting whenever their gazes met. She laughed, she sang, she charmed the cousins, yet every so often her hand rested lightly on his arm, her smile sharp as a knife. At one moment, as the others were distracted, she leaned in. Her whisper was soft, almost tender. You did not go, did you? Joan's breath caught. He turned to her, but she was already laughing with the others, leaving him drowning in the echo of her words. Over the next days, whispers began to ripple through the villa. A cousin mentioned that Joan had been seen in Suva when he was meant to be at the retreat. An uncle wondered aloud about the missing money. No one accused him outright, but the rumors grew, passed in quiet conversations by the fire. Joan felt the walls closing in. Every glance seemed to carry suspicion. Every word seemed laced with meaning. He lay awake at night, listening to the waves, knowing that the truth was circling ever closer. And through it all, Lisha remained calm, her smile never faltering. She said nothing, but her silence was louder than any accusation. One morning, unable to bear it any longer, Joan confronted Lisha. He found her walking along the beach, the tide lapping at her ankles, the sun casting a glow on the sand. "Why did you ask me that question?" he demanded, his voice low but fierce. She turned, her expression unreadable. "Because I wanted to hear what you would say." He felt his chest tighten. "You know I did not go." Lisha nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving his. "Yes, I know. And soon, others will know too, if you keep lying." Joan's knees almost gave way. He realized then that she held his future in her hands, and he had no defense. The Easter holiday was meant to bring joy, but by the week's end the atmosphere had soured. Conversations were clipped, laughter forced. The family sensed the storm building, though few understood its cause. Joan avoided their eyes, his once steady voice now uncertain. Lisha watched him closely, waiting, as though testing how far he could bend before he broke. Each evening the sea grew rougher, waves crashing harder against the shore, as though nature itself mirrored the turmoil within the villa. The storm was coming, and Joan knew there would be no hiding from it. The final meal together began in uneasy silence. The family gathered once more around the great wooden table, the dishes laid out with care, but the warmth of Easter had faded. Halfway through, Lisha set down her glass and spoke. "Family deserves honesty. Do you not agree, Joan?" Every head turned. Joan froze, the taste of food bitter on his tongue. His heart pounded as silence fell again. Lisha's eyes locked onto his, and in that moment he knew there was no escape. With a trembling voice, he began to speak. Joan's words spilled out in fragments. He admitted there had been no retreat, no journey of rest and health. The money had been spent elsewhere, on debts and mistakes he could not bear to confess in detail. His voice cracked, shame burning in every word. Gasps filled the room. Some stared in disbelief. Others shook their heads. The children were ushered away as the adults absorbed the truth. Joan lowered his gaze, unable to look at them, feeling smaller with every passing second. His pride, carefully guarded for years, had crumbled before them all. After the storm of words, silence swept through the villa. Lisha sat back, her expression softening for the first time. She had forced the truth into the open, but she did not gloat. Instead, she simply said, "Now, at least, we can begin again." The family did not speak at once, but gradually the tension eased. The sea outside calmed, the wind gentled, and the night drew in with quiet resolve. Joan sat with his head bowed, knowing he could not undo the past, yet sensing the faint stir of something new. Perhaps forgiveness, perhaps exile, he could not be sure. But one thing was certain. The tide had turned, and nothing would ever be the same again.